Well, sometimes in the fog of war, the fog of the war on sanity that Donald Trump has been waging for over 6 years now, something pierces the fog like a bolt of lightning and illuminates what we are looking at. Today, that bolt of lightning was one word. One word that explains the madness. And there's nothing more challenging to explain than madness. But Hakeem Jeffries did it today with one word. The word cult.
You know, the C in RNC doesn't stand for committee, it stands for cult. It's not the Republican National Committee, it's the Republican National Cult. That is the only way you can explain how the grand old party would come to the conclusion that people who engaged in rampant mob violence, urinated, defecated, desecrated the Capitol, brutally beat up police officers, seriously injured more than 140. Police officers lost their lives as a result of the events of January 6th. And the cult says it's legitimate political discourse.
It is a cult. Nothing else explains the Republican National Cult's unanimous decision to call the violent attack, the insurrection at the Capitol, quote, legitimate political discourse. Steve Schmidt will join us later in this hour to discuss the cult that his former party has become and the difference between what Kevin McCarthy had to say versus what Mitch McConnell had to say today about the Republican National Cult. One of the participants in what the Republican National Cult calls legitimate political discourse is 21-year-old Matthew Jason Bedingfield of North Carolina. He was out on bail for an attempted first-degree murder charge on January 6th when he went to the Capitol with his father. They are both Trump supporters, eager Trump supporters. Matthew Bedingfield and his father were among the people Donald Trump said he loved in a tweet and a video on January 6th while the Trump mob was still attacking the Capitol. The Trump mob is the violent arm of the Republican National Cult. They are a danger to society. They are a danger to themselves. They are a danger to democracy. And Donald Trump has now called on the violent arm of the Republican National Cult to launch what he calls the biggest protests we have ever seen against prosecutors in Atlanta and Manhattan and Washington, D.C., who are investigating Donald Trump. Donald Trump wants to make the violent arm of the Republican National Cult a danger to prosecutors and the rule of law and jurisprudence. Matthew Bedingfield eventually reached a plea deal in the attempted murder case in which he pleaded guilty to a lesser charge and was on probation today when he was arrested and charged finally in the attack on the Capitol. Matthew Bedingfield is now facing these charges because he was not engaging in legitimate political discourse, assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers, using a dangerous weapon or inflicting bodily injury, civil disorder, entering and remaining in a restricted building or grounds with a deadly or dangerous weapon, disorderly and disruptive conduct in a restricted building or grounds, engaging in physical violence in a restricted building or grounds, disorderly conduct in a Capitol building, impeding passage through the Capitol grounds or buildings, act of physical violence in the Capitol grounds or buildings, parading, demonstrating, or picketing in a Capitol building. He's facing all of those charges now. That is who Donald Trump says he will pardon if he ever gets presidential powers again. The crimes that federal prosecutors describe against Matthew Bedingfield are what the Republican National Cult calls legitimate political discourse. The House Select Committee investigating the January 6th attack on the Capitol is taking the classic Congressional Investigative Committee approach to the January 6th attack. The committee is trying to crush lies with the truth. But how do you get a cult to face the truth?